Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Russia says its forces have taken control of the strategic city of Kupiansk in northeastern Ukraine. After weeks of heavy fighting, the claim comes after previously contested control, with Ukraine earlier saying it had recaptured parts of the city. The United States offers NATO-style security guarantees to Ukraine as talks with European and Ukrainian officials show progress towards ending the war. U.S. envoys warned the offer is time-limited, with no agreement yet on territorial concessions. Philippine immigration says the father and the son behind Australia's deadly Bondi beach attack spent most of November in the country. Officials say the father entered the Philippines as an Indian national before returning to Australia. The UN President of the Human Rights Council has appointed Monia Amar, a Tunisian judge, and Fionnuala Ní Oláin as an Irish legal researcher, as two new members of the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Syria, as probe continues over human rights violation in Syria since 2011. A French court has delivered a landmark verdict in the fight against impunity for war crimes committed during the Democratic Republic of Congo's conflicts, sentencing former rebel leader Roger Lumbala to 30 years in prison. Lumbala, a former Congolese minister, was found guilty of complicity in crimes against humanity in eastern Congo. Finland's Prime Minister has said that European Union nations that border Russia or are located near the Russian border will flesh out proposals to boost their defense and security. Ahead of a summit in Helsinki, the EU Eastern Flank meeting includes leaders from Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Romania. Thailand says Cambodia must be the first to announce a ceasefire to halt more than a week of deadly border clashes. Bangkok says Cambodia, which it calls the aggressor, must also cooperate sincerely in border demining efforts. In the long-running conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the rebel coalition alliance, Fleuve Congo, has announced a conditional withdrawal of its fighters from the strategic city of Uvira in South Kivu province as international pressure increases. Now we start this hour with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has just spoken at The Hague in the Dutch parliament. He has called for Russia to be held accountable for what he described as a crime of aggression. Zelenskyy has stressed that justice must not be sidelined in diplomatic efforts. He warned that it is not enough to merely push Russia into a peace deal. Kyiv insists that Moscow must recognize and abide by international rules. Zelenskyy has further emphasized that enforcing accountability is crucial to upholding global law and preventing further violations. The Ukrainian leader's remarks come amid ongoing discussions over security, territorial issues, and international support for Ukraine's sovereignty. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Mr. Doctorow, for joining us. What are your initial reaction towards Zelensky's speech today at Hague?
Well, I think the speech confirms that he is totally gratified and satisfied with what happened in the Berlin meeting yesterday with European leaders, including the presidents of the European Commission and the European Council. He is satisfied that his view of the war is now being upheld by the Europeans, namely that Russia has lost the war, it should capitulate, it should pay reparations, it should punish its leaders, and so forth. This is the most remarkable propaganda that one could ever hear. The loser is declaring that the winner is the losing side and pays and must capitulate. But again, Mr. Zelenskyy did not arrive at this brave conclusion by himself. He was supported totally by the European leaders who were present in Berlin yesterday. And I don't believe that he saw any big opposition coming from the Americans who were there, Mr. Witkoff and Jared Kushner. This leaves us with total confusion what comes next.
Yes, 100%. We will be eyeing that. Please, Mr. Doctor, stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, on Ukraine's proposal for a Christmas truce, the Kremlin has said that any pause in fighting will depend on whether a broader agreement can be reached. He has also added that they did not see details of proposals on security guarantees for Ukraine yet, and they do not want ceasefire, which will provide a pause for Ukraine to better prepare for continuation of war. The Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has said that Moscow is not willing to make any concessions on Donbass, so-called Novorossiya or Crimea, adding there is still no clear understanding of the outcome of talks in Berlin. This comes as the US President Donald Trump has said that a deal may be within reach after talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European leaders, saying progress is closer than ever. Washington has offered NATO-style security guarantees for Kyiv, similar to Article 5, while Britain, France, and Germany have proposed a European force to monitor any ceasefire. However, Zelenskyy describes the talks as difficult but productive, saying Ukraine needs clear security guarantees and insisting seized Russian assets must be fully used for defense. Meanwhile, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz have said that real progress has been made, but stressed that territorial issues remain unresolved and must be decided by Ukraine. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Mr. Doctorow, for staying with us. How close do you think are we, as Ukraine seemed to be, like you said in our earlier discussion, be satisfied? Zelensky's speech showed some hope, but what now that Russia's refusal to accept a ceasefire without broader concessions? How close are we in reality then?
We're not 1 inch closer than we were before these meetings were held. The reality is, let's look at what this was. It's not what it appears to be. The purpose for that meeting was to prepare the European member states for the showdown here in Brussels that starts tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, when they're going to vote on whether the frozen Russian assets can or should be used as collateral to extend non-reimbursable loans to Ukraine with based on these Russian state assets. As we were last Friday, you had 4 European member states saying no to that proposal. Among them, the most important one, of course, was Italy. You had Belgium, Bulgaria, Italy, and Malta saying no to von der Leyen's suggestion of using the frozen assets for this loan to Ukraine. Now Italy has dropped out. That was the consequence of yesterday's meeting. It far and away is more important than any way that it could have influenced the outcome of the war. It does not at all influence the outcome of the peace talks. The peace talks are the big loser in what happened in Berlin yesterday.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Doctor, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Now, in the southern city of Zaporizhzhia, firefighters are responding to a Russian drone strike that hit a 9-story residential building, wounding at least 3 people. Separately, Ukraine's deputy energy minister says the Donetsk region is now completely without power following Russian attacks on energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry claims its forces have captured the village of Novoplatoniivka in eastern Ukraine. Moscow also says it has taken control of the strategic city of Kupiansk in the northeast after weeks of heavy fighting. Ukraine had earlier said it regained parts of the city. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Mr. Doctorow, for staying with us. Now, how might this proposed NATO-style security guarantees and European monitoring force How do you think this will be affecting the balance of power in negotiations? And do they increase the chances of a suitable peace?
No, they'll have no bearing on a suitable peace. The Russians have made their requirements perfectly clear. And now that they are ahead in every measure on the battlefield, they are not going to give up those gains for the sake of an illusory peace, which takes us back to where the war started in 22. It started because of NATO expansion and NATO's making Ukraine a de facto member, although it didn't have a diploma to put on the wall. It had European advisors who remade its army. It had European military installations on its territory, that is NATO. And so it was de facto a NATO member. And when you look at the terms of the peace that were discussed in Berlin, it takes you exactly back to that. There will be NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine as a tripwire to respond immediately to any expected Russian aggression. The one thing that is not present in any of these discussions is a resolution of the conflict between Europe and Russia. Ukraine is just where the battle is being fought. That's all it is. The Europeans are determined to have a full-blown war with Russia when they think they're ready for it, maybe in a couple of years. That has not changed.
Okay. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Doctorow for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Africa. A suicide bomber has struck a military position in northeast Nigeria near the border with Cameroon. Security and local defense sources say at least 5 soldiers were killed in the attack in Firji, near the town of Pulka in Borno State. Nigeria's military has confirmed injuries but denied any fatalities. Local witnesses say several bodies were seen at the scene and victims were taken to the hospital. The incident highlights ongoing insecurity in the region, which is a stronghold for various jihadist groups, including Boko Haram and its splinter faction, the Islamic State West Africa province, and has experienced an escalation in violence in 2005. With attacks on both military and civilian targets becoming more common, suicide bombings have also seen a resurge in the area. Now we move on to Australia. The parents of Ahmed Al-Ahmed are praising their son as a hero after he confronted a gunman during the deadly Bondi Beach shooting. His father said he was proud that Ahmed acted to protect others, while his mother said he was doing good and would be kept safe. Ahmed is recovering in the hospital after suffering gunshot wounds while disarming one of the attackers at a Jewish celebration, an attack that killed 15 people in the country's worst mass shooting in nearly 30 years. Tributes have poured in from leaders at home and abroad, with US President Donald Trump calling Ahmed very, very brave and state leaders hailing his courage. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese later met Ahmed and his family, saying his actions represent the very best of Australia. Let's listen in.
ابني بطل يعني خادم كان بالشرطة وبالأمن المركزي وعنده اندفاع يعني وعنده حب الدفاع عن الناس. لما شاف الناس بالأرض ملقحة وهالدم وهالدماء وهالبشر مباشرة ضميره ووجدانه دفعوا انه ينقض على احد الارهابيين وخلصوا السلاح تبعه ولاز بالفرار هذاك. بنفس اللحظة صديقه كانه واقف على الجسر، ما بعرف وين المكان حسب الصور اللي طالعة. يبدو قناصة معه، ما بعرف، حاول يقتله، ضربه.
Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a defense analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now looking at this, what does this, Ahmed Al-Ahmed's selfless courage in confronting this attacker without, thinking about how dangerous this could have been, what do you think this reveals about the power of individual action? And in the aftermath of this mass shooting, how can stories of courage and solidarity now shape national conversation about community safety, resilience, and preventing, of course, future attacks, especially near synagogues and towards Jewish people.
Well, Suma, the action of Mr. Ahmed in overpowering one of the terrorists and disarming the terrorist, with bare hands, I think is an act of bravery, which is rare of the rare. And as a soldier myself, I can vouch for it, that it requires more than the courage. It requires inner call of conscience. You are staking your life, fully knowing that you are fighting an armed person, and that also with the automatic weapon. I think this exemplifies the finest act of humanity, when one human being or one person stakes his life to save the others. I think this stands out as a shining example, and of course, what Australian leaders have said, that this truly represents the spirit of Australia. I think this act must be recognized, rewarded, and also act as an example for others that an individual can make a difference provided there is a courage and call of conscience. Having said that, now when we come to this instance per se, it's very unfortunate that 15 innocent lives have been lost, and the father-son duo, apparently they have been radicalized. They possibly went to Philippines, received the training, and Mr. Akram, who was the father, actually had around 5 weapons. So this also shows that the Australian gun laws needs to be tightened, because having number of weapons by an individual, it doesn't speak very well of the gun laws. And secondly, his son, Akram, was actually investigated for his possibly radicalized views, but he was let off. The point I'm trying to make is that such instances cannot be seen in isolation. When the people are getting radicalized, people are visiting those countries where they are receiving a very kind of a training, and I think their background checks must be done, and only then you can ensure that the country is safe. And more so in this case, when Jews are celebrating their festival, it was quite known that there can be a strike or there can be a hostile instance. I think adequate security was not in place, and that's why this instance did take place. So I think we need to join the dots together. And Australia, not only Australia, I think countries all over the world need to be tighten up the security against such terrorist instances, because they generally strike when there is a festivity or when there is some kind of celebration or gathering. And this is the menace which world has to face together, and every country must tighten up their own security so that such instances can be obviated. Suma.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing that, Major General Gigi Dwivedi. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we have a breaking news. Indian authorities have confirmed that Sajid Akram, the suspect in the Bondi Beach shooting in Sydney, is originally from Hyderabad, India. Police have said that they are actively investigating his background, travel history, and possible motives. An official statement has been issued as Australian and Indian authorities coordinate on this case. The attack has raised concerns over cross-border links and extremism, and security agencies are monitoring any potential networks connected to this suspect. Police urge the public to remain vigilant and provide any information that could assist in the ongoing investigation. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. Major General, now that you have heard in the breaking news that I've just took, that this father has been confirmed as Indian national from Hyderabad, how should Indian government coordinate with Australian government, and what comes next now?
Well, Suma, first and foremost, India as a nation and as government, we have zero tolerance for the terrorism, and that's what India has taken a very considerate stand. And we have been victim of terrorism for last about 4 decades. So therefore, we condemn terrorism in all forms, and in any region. And in this case, if the report is factual and if his history is traced back to Hyderabad, but the point is he has been a national of Australia for quite a number of years. So therefore, I don't think that his radicalization has any link with India, because he had visited Philippines and received the training there. But nonetheless, Indian government or Indian law enforcement agencies will fully cooperate, because our status stance is very clear that we do not tolerate terrorism in any form in any region of the world. And to that extent, if it is established that he has linkages with Hyderabad, I am sure that Indian government and Indian law agencies will fully cooperate and ensure that all the evidence and all the support is given to Australia. Asuma.
Yes, indeed, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Gigi, the Defense Minister. Major General, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving the focus back to Thailand. Thailand has stated that Cambodia must announce ceasefire first to halt the fighting between the two nations after more than a week of deadly clashes in the reignited border conflict. Meanwhile, Thailand is working out how to repatriate up to 6,000 citizens unable to return home through a major border crossing in Cambodia. Cambodia's closure of its checkpoint in the city of Phuket has prevented the return of thousands of Thai workers. Meanwhile, according to reports, up to 130,000 Cambodian children have been displaced amid border clashes with Thailand. The recent hostilities have taken the lives of 15 Cambodians and 76 others have been wounded since the conflict escalated this December. 42 residential buildings, several religious sites, and transport infrastructure have been damaged as well. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a defense analyst joined us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how fragile is this situation, and why in particular has Cambodia refused or closed this checkpoint that's crucial for Thai people to go back? What are the main obstacles?
Well, Suma, the ceasefire remains very fragile. In fact, when the truce was brokered by President Trump in October, since then it was quite expected that it could be violated any time, because the key issue, the key problem is the border problem, and that has not been addressed. And when two sides are armed facing each other, the breakage of the ceasefire or the violation of ceasefire is quite expected. And therefore, even now, when these December clashes broke out last week and ceasefire has been brokered once again, but on the ground, the violations keep taking place. And more than that, it is the Thai armed forces which have an edge over the Cambodian side, because Thailand has a very strong air force. And it has been reported that they have resorted to the aerial strikes, and the two of their F-16, they went and they dropped about 7 bombs, and that has caused further casualties. So the point I'm trying to make is that the ceasefire is very fragile. Both sides blame each other. As yet, there is no foolproof mechanism to ensure that ceasefire is monitored, while the ASEAN countries and Malaysia has come forward that there will be monitoring agency, and Malaysian defense chief would be monitoring it. But I don't think that this ceasefire mechanism or monitoring mechanism is in place. That's why both sides are resorting to violation. And as for the Thai are concerned, they are resorting to the aerial bombing, which is taking heavy casualties, and you rightly said 15 people have been killed. And next is the humanitarian crisis, because almost 500,000 people have been displaced, and more than about 130,000 children have been displaced. And at this point, when you block the checkpoints, then the situation got further aggravated, because people cannot cross over, and this becomes a very major refugee problem or humanitarian problem. I think the sense must prevail on both sides that let this crisis not become a humanitarian crisis, and
Yes.
to alleviate the human suffering, both sides must take an empathetic approach and ensure that at least they are able to allow the transition of the refugees and children to their respective sites. Asuma.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to thank retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Honduras. The Honduras officials have said that protests outside Honduras National Institute of Professional Training have been delayed a special recount of ballots from the disputed November 30th presidential election. Hundreds of supporters of the rival parties have burned tires and waved flags, accusing authorities of fraud and foreign interference. The protest has prevented election workers from beginning a hand recount of some 15% of the tally sheets, representing hundreds of thousands of ballots that are said to have inconsistencies. Let's listen in to some supporters. What have they shared?
Fraguando un golpe electoral que prácticamente es una estocada a la democracia. Nosotros como pueblo hondureño no solo nos estamos presentando como partidos políticos, sino también como sociedad, como hondureños, porque entendemos que es la única forma de poder cambiar lo que siempre se ha hecho en este país, y las nuevas generaciones ya estamos cansados de golpes electorales, de fraudes y de que se atente en contra también de la democracia del pueblo hondureño.
No estamos aceptando el proceso electoral que se dio anteriormente con todas sus inconsistencias, las amenazas que recibió la gente en primer lugar, la injerencia extranjera en segundo lugar y todo lo que se ha visto desde los problemas con las consejeras, con toda la situación que sucedió el día de las elecciones, el atraso en el TREP, las caídas del sistema. No es un proceso limpio, no es un proceso que está siendo transparente, y eso es lo que estamos exigiendo aquí.
Now we move on to Brazil. A powerful storm has toppled a 24-meter replica of the Statue of Liberty outside an Havana megastore in Brazil's Rio Grande do Sul. Winds reached up to 90 kilometers per hour as the statue, which had stood on an 11-meter concrete base since 2020, slowly leaned and then crashed into the parking lot. No injuries were reported and the concrete base remained intact, while quick action by eyewitnesses and store staff helped prevent damage to the vehicles. Mayor Marcelo Maranata had said that emergency teams were fully mobilized to ensure public safety and clear the debris. Authorities have said that they have warned residents in advance about the severe weather, and the city continues to monitor the aftermath of the storm. The fallen statue had been a recognizable landmark for the Hawan store and drew attention online after dramatic video footage of the collapse was shared. Now we move on to Europe. Scientists in Italy have been developing sweet snacks with the lab-grown plant cells and fruit residues, producing a material that a 3D printer can then process into pastries with high nutritional content. Italy's rich culinary traditions may have just gained UNESCO heritage status, but the Nutri project by the country's public research agency ENA has shown that scientists are out to push boundaries in the quest for sustainable nutri-rich snacks. The prototypes include snacks bars and glossy honey pearls designed to preserve flavor and nutritional value. Northern Europe has led early efforts, with Finnish labs producing fruit compotes from cell cultures and researchers in Zurich developing cocoa-like flavorings. That's all we have time for. Keep watching